this week.
Yeah, President Trump's team prepares for a trial. His personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, is weighing in on how things could play out.
All it says is, in the Senate, it says there shall be a trial in the United States Senate. Chief Justice presides. What happens at the beginning of the trial very often? The defense lawyer stands up and says, Your Honor, I move for the dismissal of the indictment because it fails to state a crime. Chief Justice will be given the power to dismiss. The problem here is if we do go to trial, and he'll get acquitted, and they'll make fools out of themselves. I could even argue that politically it would be better to go to trial.
All right, joining us now is NBC News political reporter Alan Smith. So is Giuliani contradicting himself here? Which scenario would be actually more beneficial to the Trump team? And is he right about the role that Chief Justice John Roberts could play?
Well, regarding Chief Justice Roberts, in order to dismiss a case in the Senate, that would be up to a vote. And it's unlikely to see the vote even ending in a 50-50 tie that would allow Roberts to make such a decision, right? Because you would need to have a certain number of Republican senators come over, but just barely not enough to get it over the threshold where the dismissal would be, put to the side based on a vote. And it's really difficult to see Chief Justice Roberts, if such a 50-50 vote did take place, being willing to put his thumb on the scale that hard and dismiss the case outright before anything was even heard, anything was presented from the House. So the scenario Giuliani's presenting there is highly, if not downright, impossible to take place. It's just so difficult to see it actually happening.
In the meantime, Alan, you had Speaker Pelosi, who had been holding the articles of impeachment in an attempt to try to negotiate for a trial that would include some witnesses and documents. So when she does hand over those two articles of impeachment, many saying it will happen this week, is there still any negotiating power left?
I would say at that point, the House really does lose whatever negotiating power it had initially. It's going to be, as Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said last week on the Sunday shows, it's going to come down to how 4 Republican senators end up voting on a whole myriad of issues, particularly witnesses and documents. They're going to be Republican senators like Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, Mitt Romney. They're going to be, at least initially, posturing themselves as being kind of on the fence. We'll see how the trial progresses, but getting those senators to come over to the Democratic side is essentially the leverage that Democrats have remaining at this point, and that's all in the Senate. So the House role, once the articles are transmitted, is essentially over.
Yeah, Alan, Democratic Representative Ted Lieu telling Msnbc how he feels about the prospect of the trial actually playing out how Majority Leader Mitch McConnell wants. Take a listen.
Whoever heard of a trial with no witnesses and no documents? That's absurd. And it's also something that the president should want, because if there's a fake trial in the Senate, and if he gets acquitted, that would be a fake acquittal.
Is he right? Also, I can imagine how the president would react if his acquittal was being called fake.
Well, if Mitch McConnell does end up getting the trial to go in a way where both the cases are presented and no witnesses are called and there's no further testimony, no more documents, you can be pretty certain that Democrats are going to say that it was a sham trial, that the acquittal is essentially meaningless, and it's going to be a partisan political battle from that point forward. It's not going to be something that's considered to be settled as if it were the end of a jury trial. So.
But honestly, Democrats already have been accused of a sham impeachment process from the beginning. So would Republicans use that logic to let the accusations of a fake acquittal just roll off their backs?
Absolutely. They would be pointing back toward what they'd be calling a double standard. They would be saying, well, look, we've been saying the whole time that the hearing that's been going on in the House was a sham. Now they say that we're a sham. So, it's really part of this effort to sort of confuse voters and think that, well, both sides sort of have a case with regards to impugning the process of the other side.
Alan, looking ahead to the next week, how soon could the Senate trial begin? And once the process starts, what's the shortest it could be? Could this all be over by the time the president is expected to give the State of the Union on February 4th?
Well, that really is up to when Nancy Pelosi decides to send the articles. And even though she hinted strongly that it would come at some point this week, she wasn't guaranteeing about it. And we still have to go through a meeting on Tuesday that she's going to have with her House caucus to sort of figure out the next steps. But the length of the trial, that's really going to be up to Mitch McConnell. We could see a trial that goes on for 6 days a week once it begins. And it could be over within a matter of a couple of weeks. So there is a chance that it is over by the time Trump gives a State of the Union. But really, that's going to be up to whether witnesses are called and when the articles are eventually sent over.
State of the Union as well as the Iowa caucuses within